bodies weren't falling for him at some points in that fight. But I believe we won that fight. Clearly, we should be two-time world champion right now.
Tank Gervonta following a contentious draw in their fight. Davis has returned to trolling. This time targeting Lamont Roach Jr. Tank didn't take long to express his feelings to Roach. Additionally, Tank's rival's remarks regarding his attractive boy justification in the ring set up the ideal future bouts for Tank, but it appears that his sole concern is money, as evidenced when he named the opponent he would call out if he had defeated Roach.
Who were you going to call out? What was the plan originally?
I think he was here.
I ain't gonna do him.
He came in my locker room.
Shakur Stevenson?
He wasn't in my locker room.
Jake Paul?
Next question.
Let's have a hot live session to catch up. Roach wasn't having it. He made it clear that Davis did everything in his power to win and still wasn't able to finish the job. Now that the dust has settled, it appears that Tank might not be done with Roach just yet. Davis made fun of Roach, saying he was still the better man and that Roach should be grateful he wasn't knocked out.
Nobody like a draw, you know, from a guy that get knockouts and things like that, but it's cool. I feel like if we fight again, I could do more, and I should have did more. I was lost in I lost track in the...
The bout was good. Roach outworked Tank in several rounds, and even had a moment in the ninth that sent shockwaves through the boxing community. Most fans and commentators thought that World Tank's knee was a clear knockdown, but the referee didn't see it that way. If the fight had been called correctly, Roach would have left with the biggest victory of his career, but it ended up being a majority draw, and Tank kept his WBA lightweight title. Tank has been in full troll mode, despite the controversy ever since he took to social media to remind Roach that he was still the champion and that a draw wasn't sufficient for him to declare victory. You should be grateful to me for keeping your career intact. Roach isn't the type to just sit back and take it. Instead, he fired back, telling Tank that he knew the truth and that Davis gave it everything he had and still couldn't put him away. Davis said in one post that he flatly dismissed Roach's performance, saying, "You had the fight of your life and still couldn't beat me."
So they was both even. If you watch the fight, they was both watching each other. Sometimes they stood right in front of each other and was just trying to figure out where the holes was at. It was a very skillful fight.
And which is one of the things that when you fight somebody that you know that.
You are aware of what transpired when the ring. Roach stated during a live Instagram session that you felt it, you gave it your all, and I told you that I couldn't be defeated. It wasn't long before Davis responded to Frank Martin's direct challenge, in which he made it obvious that he didn't appreciate Davis. This time, however, he went even farther, saying, "I took a knee because I wanted to, not because he did anything special. I was just chilling thinking about what I was going to eat after the fight." But everyone knows the truth. The moment was an uncommon display of Davis's fragility, and Roach is taking advantage of it to maintain pressure on.
And I thought I was doing my thing, so I'm not really that frustrated about that. But if that was kind of a knockdown, I would win the majority decision.
All of this back and forth is now making Tank reevaluate his future. Prior to the Roach fight, Davis had been outspoken about his intention to retire soon. He had stated that he would be finished boxing by the end of 2025 and that he had 3 more fights left after Roach. However, that draw completely changed everything, and now Davis is stating that he isn't going anywhere just yet. Tank acknowledged at the press conference following the bout that I likely have 4 more battles ahead of me.
For your future?
Yeah, it definitely changed my plans. It definitely changed my plans. I probably got like 4 more fights now. For sure.
Tank stated at the end of 20,120 for that he had grown weary of boxing and was prepared to quit, but now he has something to show that the draw against Roach has obviously been eating at him. even though he won't acknowledge it directly. His constant trolling is sufficient evidence. Kezin Davis, however, is on a mission to expose Tank and isn't keeping anything back. Ever since Tank's contentious draw with Roach Kezin, which has been widely shared on social media, Kezin has made it apparent that he never thought Tank was the warrior he claimed to be to Keen. Tank's entire aura has been based on hype rather than actual skill, and after witnessing him struggle against Roach, Kezin is solidifying his conviction that Tank is not who people believe him to be. He is also making it known that he would definitely knock Tank down if they ever engaged in combat.
That fight playing out, what's the biggest advantage that Keyshawn has?
Against Tank?
Yeah.
It's a great boxer. He sounds a great boxer, and he got power behind him. So I can see that fight just being an entertaining fight. He sounds the entertainer, like you said. Tank comes in there and tries to knock you out. I can see that fight just being entertained and, doing later rounds, Keyshawn stop it. Yeah.
When Keen first spoke out on Instagram Live, he wasted no time in criticizing Tank's performance. He said, "I feel like Lamont definitely want to draw it as what it is, making sure that everyone knew exactly where he stood. I'm not criticizing the decision, but I did think Lamont Roach pulled it off." However, he wasn't just expressing his opinion. He was providing evidence to support it. Had the 9th round knee been correctly ruled as a knockdown, Tank would have won on 2 of the 3 scorecards, making him the new WBA lightweight champion. Instead, Tank kept his title, and the controversy only served to deepen the debate about whether or not he's actually greatest at 135, Kezin added, making it apparent that he thinks Roach would win a rematch without a doubt. If they ran it back, you already know what would happen.
The nigga's trash. I'm talking about the opponent. Burn trash. I just don't like how...
But this wasn't just about Roach. It was also about Kezin inserting himself into the conversation. He doesn't just think that Roach beat Tank. He thinks that he would do much worse to him. "I'm the best at 135 man," he said confidently. "Either one of them guys, I'm knocking them outward." He wasn't hesitant or unsure. Instead, he spoke like a man who already knows what's going to happen. "I'm telling you, if you give me either or before their rematch, I'm f***ing that rematch they're getting put I ain't playing, I'll put all these guys down, as Kezin will be the one taking over the division if he reaches either of them first."
But I don't want to fight one of them. You know what I'm saying? I don't care who I fight at this point. I don't care. But I'm telling you, if you give me either or before they rematch, I'm fucking their rematch up. They getting put. I'm telling you, I ain't even playing. I ain't playing, bro. I'm young. I'm on fire. I'm young and I'm on fire.
At that point, Kezin truly gave in to Tank. Don't say, "Tank will knock me out no more," because I'm shutting that down right now. Don't even open your mouth to say, "This man could knock me out crazy." It wasn't just trash talk. It was a complete rejection of everything Tank has built his reputation on. The knockout's the aspect of fear. Kezin doesn't believe any of that, since Tank has never faced anyone like him, and he's making it clear that their fight would be unlike anything Tank has ever encountered once they enter the ring.
And I thought I should have won a competitive fight. I think I did what I needed to do necessary to bank the rounds, and even without the knee, that should have been a knockdown. So I don't think there's any excuse for me not to win tonight, but that's just how the cookie crumbled.
There is a genuine chance that Kezin will face Tank next. And although Tank has stated that he is amenable to a rematch with Roach, he has also made it apparent that it won't be the next one, leaving fans to wonder if it won't be Roach. Names like Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson have been making the rounds, but so has Kezin Davis, and considering how personal he is making it, the build-up to that fight would be unlike anything we've seen from Tank in a long time. Kezin is criticizing not just Tank's most recent fight, but his entire career, arguing that Tank has never been who people claim him to be. That rather of facing real threats, he has been intentionally paired with opponents that make him appear strong.
That particular quality, if I'm Tank Davis and I'm coming off a disappointment in terms of my offensive output, I'm not going straight to the best defender in the division. I'm looking for some other fight, and I think the logical fight for him is a rematch with Lamont Roach.
And now that he is finally engaged in a genuine battle, in which he barely made it, Tank's mystique is collapsing, and he wants to be the one to strike the last nail in the coffin. But Kezin is not the only one receiving criticism. Tim Bradley had been one of Tank's harshest critics for years, always challenging his degree of opposition and the way his career was run. But even he had to admit to MIT that Tank had something unique, particularly with the way Tank responded to the Saudis. Over time, Bradley had begun to value those traits, even though he didn't always agree with Tank's self-presentation. But all of that respect vanished after what he witnessed against Lamont Roach Jr.
I think when he found out that this guy is in front of me, he's taking it. I think it was too late. I thought it was disappointing that he didn't draw.
Not only did Tank perform poorly, but his demeanor, sense of entitlement, and conviction that he could. Bradley had seen a lot of boxing, but Tank's antics in that fight left him speechless. He had anticipated a dominant performance from Davis, a statement victory that would silence critics and demonstrate that he was still the man to beat at 135. Instead, Tank appeared weak, and worse, he pretended to be above the sport.
Hey, can't even see who it is. Hey, who is the dude? Who is the dude?
Bradley was appalled by what he witnessed and didn't hold back in his analysis. He believed Tank had been unfairly given the edge, that the fight was being manipulated to shield him rather than allowing the action to unfold organically. The occurrence in the 9th round was the ideal illustration. Bradley realized that Tank wasn't just being ignored. He was being treated like boxing royalty with the rules skewed in his favor. For someone like Bradley, who took pride in fighting the hard way, that was unacceptable. Bradley had never witnessed a fighter take a knee like that, pause the action on his own terms, and have the referee completely ignore it.
They made the rules up. Yeah, that was bullshit. It should have been called a knockdown. You can't take a break like that. The only person that can do that is the referee. The referee can stop the action and say, hey, let me take you to the corner.
Additionally, he criticized Tank's attitude during the fight, saying that there was no sense of urgency and no genuine attempt to seize control in the later rounds when the fight was slipping away. It seemed as though Tank thought his reputation would be sufficient to win, as if the judges wouldn't dare score it against him. Bradley had previously witnessed fighters go hungry, but this time was unique. Tank wasn't simply coasting. He was behaving as though he only needed to perform the bare minimum, which was a big issue for Bradley.
Stop closing up. Gotta let it go. Keep turning, step around.
He had given Tank credit after his knockout victory over Ryan Garcia, acknowledging that Tank had demonstrated patience, timing, and a high ring IQ. Bradley was especially irritated because Tank had actually begun to turn around on Tank. He had even defended Tank against some critics who said he was overrated, claiming that his power made him one of the sport's most dangerous fighters. But this fight changed everything. Bradley questioned whether he had ever been mistaken to give Tank that credit in the first place because of his refusal to push himself and the way he depended more on his prestige than his abilities. Location. Bradley became more and more irate the more he considered it. This wasn't just about one battle. It was about what it meant for the future if Tank was already displaying indications of complacency and believed that he didn't need to prove himself in order to win his upcoming fights. What would happen if he squared off against a young, hungry, and determined opponent like Kezin Davis? What would happen if he faced up against Devin Haney or Shakur Stevenson? He couldn't get away with taking rounds off of two fighters. Bradley wasn't scared to express his disapproval of what he saw.
Okay. We still got to see each other. He say he want to fight me, so we gonna fight.
But what do you think about the decision?
I told Lamont won.
You thought Lamont won. Got you. I'll talk to you later, Shakur. Good luck.
Bradley believed that boxing was about having a disciplined heart and being willing to go above and beyond when things got tough. He had been in wars, had pushed himself to the limit, and had never once demanded special treatment, which is why he was disgusted by the entire situation. He didn't care how talented Tank was. If he wasn't willing to fight like a champion, he was never a real champion. Despite all of this criticism, however, Davis seems to have reached a point where he doesn't really care what the fans think. He isn't trying to prove himself against the best in his division. He isn't concerned with legacy at the moment. Instead, he is focused on making money. And if that's the case, Jake Paul is the biggest payoff available. The signs are everywhere. When Tank was asked about his next fight, he danced around the question in a way that made it obvious he already knew who it was. He even refused to give Jake Paul's name when the media PR him, which could indicate that negotiations are already in progress, and he didn't want to reveal the news too soon. Jake Paul was in the locker room prior to the fight, and the cameras made sure to show him during the broadcast. A fight with Jake Paul wouldn't be about competition, it would be about business. Jake knows how to sell a fight, and Tank is at a point where he's prioritizing paydays over challenges. He already hinted that a rematch with Lamont Roach wasn't happening next, even though the controversy from their fight makes the most logical option. The WBA should be ordering an immediate rematch. But Tank doesn't seem interested. If they push the issue, he could just vacate the title and move on. That's how little the belts matter to him now. And if he's going to move on from defending his title, why not go all in and take the biggest spectacle fight he can get? This fight is absurd in terms of size. Even if Jake Paul managed to lose himself to 185 pounds, there would still be a 45-pound gap between him and Tank, who is a natural 135-pounder and has even reached 227 pounds for his fight with him. However, this isn't about fairness. It's about selling a fight. Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz are two smaller fighters that Jake Paul has previously called out. A bout with a Tank would just be another event in his fight repertoire.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be down. Let's run it. Like, I'll be super, super down. I don't know if
Gervonta needs Jake Paul. Let's be clear, right?
Is there a height limit in boxing?
Jake already turns fights into must-see events because he understands just how to get under people's skin. Suggests that he would destroy Tank because of their size difference while still respecting him as a fighter. That's the kind of remark that will keep the conversation going. He's sowing the seed, and Tank appears to be on board. Had Tank been truly interested in facing Shakur Stevenson or Devin Haney, he would have mentioned their names when prompted. But instead, he played coy, sidestepped the query, and allowed rumors to circulate, which is precisely how a fight between Jake Paul would be advertised.
No, I'm not.
He's a champ though too, undefeated.
And what champ? Come on, man, tell me what belt. You know boxing. You forgot Devin Haney is undisputed. Devin Haney got all the belts. He the champ. Nobody else the champ. I'm gonna come up here where the big boys at.
For many years, Tank supporters stood up for him when others questioned his level of skill, claiming that he was the sport's most deadly puncher and didn't need to face the greatest names to establish himself. However, these days, even his most devoted followers are having trouble supporting him. His lackluster performance against Roach and his post-fight demeanor demonstrated that he is not taking these bouts seriously. If he fights Jake Paul next, it will be obvious that he is no longer interested in competing against the best.
Go ahead, Jazzy, get in the ring, Jazzy.
Tank has always been a boxing star, but Jake Paul attracts a whole different audience. This fight would sell only because of the names involved, not because of any genuine competition. Casual fans would love it and die-hard boxing fans would hate it. But in any case, it would make money. And at this point, that seems to be all Tank cares about. Some may argue that Tank is just trolling and that he wouldn't actually fight Jake Paul. But the truth is that he hasn't denied that's not how a fighter reacts when a baseless rumor is raised. That's how a fighter reacts when something is being negotiated behind the scenes. When the concept was raised, he didn't dismiss it or laugh it off. Instead, He simply went on to the next question. Tank still has unfinished business at lightweight, and he has elite competitors waiting for him, which is the main issue with all of this. Tank should fight fighters like Shakur Haney and even Kezin Davis, who has been criticizing him constantly, if he wants to demonstrate that he is the best at 135. However, if he decides to fight Jake Paul instead, it will be obvious that he has given up on being the best and isn't attempting to establish a legendary career. Instead, he just wants the biggest bag possible, and Jake Paul is that bag at the moment. What do you believe will happen next? Lamont Roach's Superior Tank, please subscribe for additional updates and leave your comments below.